What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Wrasslin for Life Network, and welcome back to another edition of the TNA Impact Review. We had Trick Williams from NXT open up TNA Impact this past week. We had a huge dog collar match between Steve Maclin and Eric Young for the TNA International Championship. Victoria Crawford, aka Alicia Fox, made her TNA in-ring debut on this week's episode of TNA Impact. We got a lot to talk about today, so let's get into it. Coming out of NXT this past week, we had some huge news, and that is why Trick Williams opened up TNA Impact this week. Coming out of NXT, we found out for the first time ever on a WWE Premium Live event, NXT Battleground, Joe Hendry will be defending the TNA World Championship against Trick Williams. And that's just 2 days removed from Under Siege, where Trick Williams teams with Frankie Kazarian to take on the TNA World Champion Joe Hendry and Elijah. So we got huge news, and that's why Trick Williams opened up TNA this week. He opened up TNA, basically called out Joe Hendry. He came to his yard, he came to his house. He wants to see Joe Hendry in his ring, in the TNA wrestling ring. And Joe Hendry came out. He was ready. Joe Hendry came out. He tried to go after Trick Williams. They got into a quick little brawl, but Trick Williams wasn't having it. So to make a statement, Joe Hendry hit the standing ovation on one of the security staff members that were out there trying to protect Trick Williams, like he actually needs, security around him. But it's set, y'all. It's going down at Battleground, 2 days removed from Under Siege. Joe Hendry defending the TNA World Championship for the first time in a WWE NXT ring against Trick Williams. And I think this is huge for TNA. I think this is huge for NXT as a whole. And it's huge for the partnership because we don't see these kind of things. We know the Knockouts title has been defended on NXT television before. So having the world title from TNA be defended on NXT television, WWE TV, a WWE Premium Live event where you got a lot of eyes watching the product is going to be great for TNA, hopefully with Joe Hendry winning. But I'm excited. I'm excited for what they do with Trick Williams. I'm excited to see what they do with Joe Hendry as world champion because, last week on the live episode of TNA Impact, Mike Santana called out Joe Hendry. Mike Santana called out Joe Hendry and basically said that he wants the TNA World Championship and he is going to get it. So we got Trick Williams in the way. We got Mike Santana in the way. What is next for Joe Hendry? Joe Hendry is all over the place. He's on WWE TV. He's on TNA television. He is doing his best as world champion to promote the TNA brand, and I'm excited to see what they do in the future. The opening match on TNA Impact this week was Lei Ying Lee versus Rosemary, and just a couple of weeks ago at Rebellion, they were actually on the same team. They had teamed with Xia Brookside to take on Fatal Influence from NXT, so it's basically a TNA versus NXT, women's battle right there. But now they are at odds again. And this was a great match between these two. Lei Ying Lee really has came into her own since she moved from WWE on to TNA wrestling. She has put on some great matches so far. This was one that was really good. And she faced Tessa Blanchard just a couple of weeks ago at Sacrifice. And that match was incredible. So yeah, they're doing some great things with Lei Ying Lee. Lei Ying Lee did pick up the victory. I don't know where we're headed here, and I feel like Rosemary has been kind of taking some losses here a bit. So we got to get Rosemary back into a winning streak here, but she got Zaya Brookside, chasing after her. She got Legging Lee chasing after her. There's a lot going on with these three women, and they need to come together and get it straight at this point, right? I know we're in the midst of a feud, but this has been great, and I'm excited for seeing Legging Lee move forward in the knockouts division to see what she kind of does next. I'm excited to see what happens with Rosemary and what they do over the next couple of months. I don't know if Rosemary is out the door. I do have that feeling she's going to step away from TNA. I hope she doesn't. Rosemary is a top tier talent, and I think she's been doing phenomenal things. I just wish she would have some wins under her belt. But we got to stay glued to see what they do with all three of those women as we charge towards, Under Siege, Against All Odds, and Slammiversary. The Order 4. The Order 4 is a group that consists of the Great Hands, Tasha Steelz, and Mustafa Ali. And on this week's episode of TNA Impact, the Great Hands took on the Aztec Warriors. And at this point, the Order 4 are trying to find their footing as Mustafa Ali took a heartbreaking loss to Mike Santana at Rebellion. Mike Santana has moved on. He wants the TNA World Championship. So what is next for Mustafa Ali? But before we get to that, we had this excellent match between the Great Hands and the Aztec Warriors. I think this was a phenomenal match. This was won by the Aztec Warriors, but at the end, Mustafa Ali ran out, attacked members of the Aztec Warriors, which then brought out the Roscoes, Trey Miguel, and Zachary Wentz, because actually right after that, we had another match. And that was Mustafa Ali versus Trey Miguel in some singles action, which I really felt like that was the first time ever match. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like that was the first time ever match in TNA wrestling, and this was a fun match. I think this match was won by Mustafa Ali, and he got help from the Great Hands and Tasha Steelz and everyone else involved in that group. But man, I kind of want to see this match again. I really feel like if this match was given some significant time, Trey Miguel and Mustafa Ali could put on a banger match. It could be one of those matches of the night, one of those match of the year candidates. Trey Miguel is an excellent wrestler. Mustafa Ali has really came into his own as a signed, contracted TNA talent, and I can't wait to see what they do with him. They could put him in the world title picture. They could put him, against the international champion, Steve Macklin. There's a lot of places you can put this gentleman because he is top tier talent in TNA wrestling. I don't know what they're going to do with him or for him or with this group. I really believe it could be to the point where maybe Mustafa Ali wins the international championship. You have the Great Hands win the tag team championships, and maybe you even have Tasha Steelz win the Knockouts world title, and this group just kind of runs TNA just like the system did. So you got a lot of opportunities here of what you can do with Mustafa Ali. And then you got, the Rascals with Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz, and they can feud with the Great Hands with the tag team titles. You could put that in a feud. You can put Tasha Steelz in a top tier feud in the Knockouts division, and Mustafa Ali being either world champion or international champion, whatever title he holds, you can put him in a banger feud there and just have them run TNA wrestling for, a bit there. Like I said, just like the system did, late last year, early last year, they were really kind of pushing the system on us. And I thought it was great. And you can kind of do the same thing here with the Order 4. But I'm excited. I say this a lot. I'm really excited to see what TNA just does in the future in general, because they just, they continue to put out the best product that they can possible. Every week, each episode of TNA Impact either gets better or just stays consistent with, the stories that they're telling and the fans they're trying to draw in. That's why it's really good to be a TNA fan. And I like to speculate and, kind of fantasy book with TNA, because when you do that, it just makes it a bit more fun. So I'm excited. I'm excited for what they do with the Order 4 and with the Rascals and with Joe Hendry and potentially with Trick Williams, Mustafa Ali. I mean, there's a lot they can do, and I'm excited to be here on that ride with TNA Wrestling. The Hardys have taken some losses over the past couple of weeks. They lost at Rebellion, they lost at the TNA Live Impact episode. What is next for the Hardys? And they said they're going to climb their way back to winning those tag team championships. So, what does that mean? How do we climb back to getting to the TNA tag team championships? They have a plan. They want those titles. They just don't know how to execute that plan. But they want their rematch. They want their rematch. And they kind of asked for their rematch here in this segment where we would hear from both Matt and Jeff Hardy. But then we had the Nimitz comes out, who are the new TNA World Tag Team Champions. And they offered. They offered to put their titles on the line at Under Siege. It would be the Hardys, challenging for the TNA World Tag Team Championships against the Nimitz. But there's one thing that is stopping them from making this match official. And that's because of Jeff Hardy's past, his history, in his struggles. He is not allowed into Canada for Under Siege. So they were like, well, we can't put the tag team titles on the line. Let's move on. Let's find some other challengers. But Santino Marella came out and he kind of made it official. It's just going to be without Jeff Hardy. So at Under Siege, we will have the Nimitz defending the TNA World Tag Team Championships against Matt Hardy and a partner of his choosing. Who will that partner be? I'm excited. Will it be some NXT talent? Will it be some new talent coming into TNA wrestling? Who will be that partner for Matt Hardy? We got to tune into Under Siege to find out. We are basically about 2 weeks away from Under Siege, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited for Under Siege. I'm always excited for a TNA monthly special, a TNA pay-per-view. I feel like they always deliver, and nonetheless, here at Under Siege, I think they're going to do the same thing. So again, at Under Siege, Ryan and Nick Nemeth defend the TNA World Tag Team Championships against Matt Hardy and a partner of his choosing. Former WWE Divas champion Alicia Fox, now known as Victoria Crawford, made her TNA in-ring debut this past week on TNA Impact, and she wrestled a woman named Brittany Brooks, and that match was so quick. I turned away, turned back, the match was over. Victoria Crawford pinning her with an axe kick. And so now she charges on to Under Siege to face Masha Slamovich for the TNA Knockouts World title. Masha Slamovich came out, attacked Victoria Crawford, and then Masha was blindsided by Tessa Blanchard, who came to Victoria Crawford's defense there. And then Santino Marella came out and said, hey, we are going to have a tag team match next week on TNA Impact, and it's going to be Victoria Crawford teaming up with Tessa Blanchard to take on Masha Slamovich and a partner of her choosing. But since Santino Marella is under review, Robert Stone didn't like that. Robert Stone said it won't be a partner of her choosing. Her partner will be Nikita Lyons from NXT. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm going to just be honest with y'all. I don't know how I feel about that, but we shall see. We shall see next week. It will be Victoria Crawford and Tessa Blanchard versus Masha Slamovich and Nikita Lyons. Y'all tune in to see how that work out. And before we move to the main event of TNA Impact this week, let's go over some of the matches going down next week on TNA Impact. So we got Victoria Crawford teaming up with Tessa Blanchard to take on Masha Slamovich and Nikita Lyons. We have a fatal four-way match to determine the number one contender to the TNA International Championship. That's Matt Cardona, that's Ace Austin, that's Mance Warner, and that is Elijah. We also have a big tag team match between the Rascals and the Great Hands. And lastly, for the first time ever in 16 years. So this is the second time these two men have faced off in singles competition. Nick Nemeth will take on Jeff Hardy. And I did say lastly, but there is one more thing. Next week, Indy Hartwell makes her TNA in-ring debut. So we got a stacked show next week. We got a lot going down next week, and I'll be here to talk about it because I'm excited, as always, for TNA Wrestling. We are at the main event of TNA Impact this week, and it was Steve Maclin versus Eric Young in a dog collar match to end this feud. And this was an intense match and also the end of an era in TNA wrestling. As if you have not seen the reports online, TNA Impact has basically prohibited excessive blood in wrestling right now as they try to expand TNA globally. We just signed the Canadian deal earlier this year for TV rights over there. We just signed the Latin American deal for more TV rights, and they're trying to expand in the United States. And to clean up the product, they have prohibited excessive blood in TNA wrestling for the time being. So this was the last match. And if they were going to do it, they were going to do it right with some excessive blood. If you've seen the picture online of the wrestling ring, it was covered in blood. This was intense. The mat was covered in blood. Both wrestlers were covered in blood. I believe the TNA International Championship was covered in blood. They said, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this with a bang. We are going out with a bang with excessive blood. This was a great match. This was intense. This was hard hitting. This is what that feud needed to end it, with Steve Maclin retaining the international championship. And like I said, I hope that Steve Maclin holds that title for a good period of time. If I was booking it, and I'm not a booker, I'm just a fan. But if I was booking this, that man wouldn't lose that title until Bound for Glory. That's just me. I believe Steve Maclin really deserves everything good that comes to him in professional wrestling. So if I was booking this, he drops the title at Bound for Glory, and not a moment sooner. But I'm excited that this feud has ended. It was kind of rocky, but it had its good moments, and I think it ended on a good moment. It ended, with Steve Maclin standing tall and retaining that title. So I'm interested to see who his next challenger is. We'll find out next week, because we got Matt Cardona, we got Elijah, we got Ace Austin, we got Mace Warner, all in a fatal four-way to determine the number one contender. And whenever that match goes down, if it's at Against All Odds, if it's at Under Siege, we'll find out. But I'm excited to see the next step of Steve Maclin as international champion in TNA wrestling. That is it for the TNA Impact review this week. We talked Trick Williams, we talked Joe Hendry, Steve Maclin, the Rascals, Mustafa Ali, Tessa Blanchard, Masha Slamovich. We covered the entire episode from start to finish of TNA Wrestling. I'm excited for next week's episode of TNA Impact. I'm excited every week in general for TNA. It's literally, and I'm not trying to be biased, but it's literally my favorite wrestling show each and every week. I'm excited to get to Thursday to see some TNA action, some total nonstop action wrestling every Thursday. Literally my favorite wrestling show. But I'll be back next week for more of the TNA Impact review, covering all things from this upcoming episode of TNA. May talk about Under Siege a little bit, since it'll be the following Friday. So we got to talk about, predictions, who may win, what could happen as we get to Under Siege and Battleground and Against All Odds, all, just within days and weeks of one another. But thank you for watching the TNA Impact review. I am your host, Ringsider Anthony, and I will see you in the next one.